They brought out the scale, they brought out the tape measure, and they had the talk with me at the age of 12. Well, let's put this little girl on a diet and let's give her some diet pills. So only of value when I was thin, right? All the agents would just say, take these drugs, smoke cigarettes, drink coffee, and avoid food whenever possible. By the time I came into my 20s, I just felt broken.
Hi everybody, Dr. Joan Ifland here. Thanks so much for joining me with these conversations about how to recover from processed food. Today my incredible guest is Leslie Marioni. I know Leslie well from the time in the ARC that we've spent together and the time in FARA training. Leslie's now an ARC advocate, and I love working with her. We're going to find out yet another set of circumstances that was not Leslie's fault. I may throw in a few stories of my own, and let's just get straight to it. Leslie, how old were you, do you think, when you, as you look back, when you think you first were in the grips of processed food addiction?
Wow, I really think my processed food addiction started when I was a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost heartbreaking to even think about that.
Yeah.
But when I look back over my history, it started very young. And it really became apparent back in the 70s when I started working as a commercial and fashion model. I was only 12, but I was already 5'6", and by 14, I was 5'9". So I had the height, I had the look, but my agents were concerned because I was chubby. So they brought out the scale, they brought out the tape measure, and they had the talk with me, right? So it was really an ultimatum. It was basically, if you want to succeed, if you want to make money, if you want to travel the world, you're going to have to lose weight. Both my parents were obese, which was not that common in the 70s. It was kind of on the rise, but the obesity rate was a lot less back then.
Yeah.
And my parents owned a business that sold processed food and also served diner style food for breakfast and lunch. So from very early on, I had easy, constant access.
Oh gosh.
To, calorie dense, high fat, high sugar, high salt processed food.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And, the agents that I worked with, they just decide, all right, well, let's put this little girl on a diet and let's give her some diet pills. So they told my mom to take me to the doctor and put me on diet pills.
So at age 14?
No, actually at the age of 12.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Leslie.
Yeah. So right there, I was being set up for disastrous results. But at first it worked, Joan. The restriction worked, the pills worked in the beginning, but then what happened was this repeated bouts of binging and restricting, and over the years through my career, when my weight was down, I would work, I would make money. And then when my weight was up, I would hide, right? So either my agents would send me to what they call back then a fat camp.
Oh gosh.
Or I would have to take time off, and then they would just tell clients, oh, she's not available right now. And so they would wait for me to lose that weight again. And then I was only of value when I was thin. Right?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Value when I was thin. And this scenario lasted for decades.
Yeah.
So when I continued my career with modeling and then TV commercials, over the years, there was always this, secret battle, behind the scenes, where no matter where I was working, whether it was Paris, Tokyo, Milan, London, all the agents would just say, take these drugs, smoke cigarettes, drink coffee, and avoid food whenever possible. This is
a way of life. This is a way of life.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
And so by the time I came into my 20s, I just felt broken. And then when I left the industry, I entered therapy for bulimia. And I thought that if I could learn nutrition,
Okay.
right? If I could learn nutrition and how to take care of my body, that it would
Mm-hmm.
fix me, that would fix me.
That would fix you.
So, yeah. Yeah. So once I stopped all the stimulants and all those destructive habits, right, that kept my weight down, I just ballooned. I just ballooned to 100+ pounds overweight. No
Oh,
matter how much nutrition education I got, Joan, or how much knowledge I had, my struggle was still there. It just would not go away.
Leslie, you're bringing up a topic which hurts my heart. It hurts my stomach. It hurts my whole body, which is these expensive 2-year, 18-month, quote unquote, nutrition. I mean, they are nutrition programs. That's all good. But when they represent that somehow their training is going to help somebody get control over their food, I'm going to use a very harsh word, but because of stories like I've heard from people like you, well, let's just say it gently, it's not true. having a vast amount of nutrition knowledge will not help you one iota get control over your food, because the food issues are coming out of hyperactivated craving pathways. It is an addiction issue. It's a craving issue. And yes, like if you're working with drug and alcohol addiction, nutrition is really valuable. But you need to treat the cravings.
Yeah.
Before you can use any of that nutrition information. So there you are. Now you're a nutritionist.
Well, I also think I don't know if I was fooled or if I was fooling myself into thinking what I thought was healthy. Because if you would have asked me back then, I would have said, well, I eat healthy food. My husband used to say to me, I just don't understand. You eat so healthy and you take such good care of yourself. I just don't understand why you have such a battle with your weight and with your health. But I think it's because, my idea of what processed food was back then was like ultra junk food, right? And I didn't eat any of that. So I didn't really have a clear understanding of foods that really cause that hyper reward system, right, to be activated.
Right.
And what else didn't hurt is because I was also trained as a chef. I used those skills to, make, processed foods look like healthy foods, right? So not only was I fooling myself about what was really healthy food compared to processed foods, but no matter what program I would follow, right, wherever my education took me, I would always go to those foods that were, maybe it wasn't refined sugar, maybe it wasn't, all refined foods, but boy, that combination of fat, sugar, and salt, I would find a way to fool myself into thinking, well, this is healthy, even though it was loaded with natural sugars, but still concentrated, right? Still loaded with the salt, still loaded with, really high amounts of fat. And I just didn't get that at that time.
It's so, when you have that craving condition in the brain, the intense cravings, that part of your brain will get very, very creative, delusional, just so that it stays fed. It just, all it wants is a fix and then another fix. And the amount of delusion and rationalization, and it's true for any cravings disorder. The research talks about this rationalization component of why it is okay to use. And it's one of the ways that we know that processed foods that the brain is perceiving them just like recreational drugs. It's not food. There's nothing happening in the feeding pathways. It's all up here in the craving pathways. Yeah. So, Leslie, It's so cool that you can see this now.
Yeah. And
How
I
did
see,
you
and
get
I
out
can
of
see
this?
it. I can see it so clearly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would say my turning point was, my nutrition practice, I handled very similarly to the cycle I was in when I was in the modeling industry,
Oh, tell us.
which was when I was thin, I would put myself out there, right? I'd get clients, I'd teach classes, I'd be in, magazines, newspapers, out in the media. And then when my weight came back up again, which was still a cycle for me, then I would hide, just like I did
Mm-hmm.
when I was in the modeling industry. And
Mm.
so I would hide in many ways. Sometimes I would pay huge amounts of money to go to a retreat center instead of, what they would call a fat camp back in the 70s. I hate that term, but it's
Oh,
so crazy that they even used that
oh,
term back then.
Leslie.
And, so I would go and disappear, lose the weight, tell clients I'm not taking any new clients right now, hide out, wait until the weight came off again, and then restart up my practice.
Oh my gosh. And it hurts to hear you talk about this, but what do you think that did to your self esteem?
Oh my gosh. Well, what self-esteem? I mean,
Yeah.
what self-esteem? I
Yeah.
mean, what I had mentioned in the beginning was, and this is one of the first false beliefs I started working on, when I came into the arc, was that I'm only of value when I'm thin.
Yes.
That's it.
That's what I
That
was
was
thinking.
that was like my mantra.
Mm-hmm.
How's that? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that breaks my heart just to
Yeah.
hear me say that out loud,
Oh
right?
my gosh. And that is really hard to unpeel.
Yeah.
That is really hard to extract. I know I'm about to go off to a conference, and I've spent the last couple of weeks wondering, oh, I wonder if I'm thin enough that people will, buy into the ARC and into our trainings. I wonder if I'm thin enough for
Yeah.
people to believe in my programs. It's, oh my gosh, it's insidious. And that comes from really from high school when
Mhm.
my parents were obsessed with weight status of their children. Yeah, Leslie, so what did you do? How did you get out of it?
Well, what was interesting was so I was ready to retire from nutrition. I just couldn't, I found that the older I got, the harder it was to control my food, right? So I reached out to a health coach, thinking, maybe I just need help. Maybe I'm just trying to do this on my own is just not going to work. So I reached out, paid huge amounts of money for a program, and I just thought, okay, this is what I need. I just need some support outside of myself, right? And I went into this program and lost a lot of weight, but oh my gosh, but what started happening is the weight started coming back on, and I panicked. I panicked because I really thought that all of this yo-yoing was not my fault, right? I really thought that it was the wrong program. If I could just get the right program. But
Okay.
then at the same time, so we've got two opposing beliefs. So it's not my fault, it's the program. But then I also had this other belief that the weight gain, the weight regain, that was all my fault,
Okay. Okay.
right? And so if I could just have more willpower, if I can just control myself more, then the weight regain part won't happen. So during that time of panic, I happened to be listening to a podcast that you were on,
Ah, okay. Okay.
right? Like, how am I going to stop this? So that really was my only goal at that time, was how do I keep this, how do I keep this weight loss that I just got from this very expensive program, so that I can, maybe keep my practice open and keep going. So after listening to
What kinds
you,
just before you go, what
yeah, yeah.
kinds of kind of weight swings were you experiencing?
Oh my gosh. So I have lost over 100 pounds, more than twice.
Mm,
Lost and gained, lost
mm,
and gained. And, and it's a typical thing, Joan, it's, you lose the weight, it comes back plus more. Right. And I really thought I could beat that. I could beat that cycle. I just needed to be stronger. I just needed more willpower.
Right.
And if I could just maintain that weight, I could be of value. I could live my life.
Right.
I could be out in the open and not be hiding and isolating and ashamed and embarrassed, because I'm supposed to know better, right? I'm a nutritionist, supposed to know better.
Yep.
So, so after listening to your message, I just thought, food addiction? God, I never really thought about that. I heard about it. I know there were programs out there, but I didn't really understand it. And I don't know, I was a little intimidated even by the term, right? And so, but I just decided to put that aside and just be open. Okay, I'm just going to be open to this idea. So I found the addiction recovery community and I decided to join as a member. But at the same time, I joined 2 other programs of food addiction, because now I'm researching, right? So I'm one of those people that I have a new concept. I just want to dig in and learn as much as I can, right? So I was trying 3 programs at once.
Okay.
And the other 2 faded away. I'm like, nope, that's not for me. They just did not offer what I was finding in my membership with the ARC.
Okay. Leslie, I'm going to stop you just for a second. We're recording this in 2024, which means I have been in this field now for 28 and a half years. I started in 1996. I have a PhD in addictive nutrition. I spent 3 years full-time researching, writing the textbook for the field. We know that at this point, the tobacco industry came into processed foods in in the mid-1980s. They bought Kraft, Nabisco, and General Foods in 3 short years. They brought a cravings business model. It's when you have a worthless product like a cigarette that's actually destructive, but it can trigger cravings. Then you can sell it based on the cravings. Cigarettes are sexy, processed foods are convenient. And this is a business model. But now, here, 40 years later, most people have this quite severely. Their cravings are dominating their lives. And they didn't ask for it. And we've been manipulated by the same model that caused 2/3 of American adults to smoke. And yes, it's not our fault. But the skill set, the skills that you need in order to prevent the food industry from continuing to provoke the heck out of your cravings and stay calm, because stress provokes cravings. I mean, it's extensive. And so I thought once I wrote the textbook and I published it, everybody would give adequate programs. Everybody would realize this is a severe cravings disorder at this point, and everybody would offer immersion around the clock, get in anytime you have a craving, get help, get compassion, work through your negative, you're mad, sad, afraid, ashamed, guilty, lonely, and nobody else has. So I have just decided that, I have a moral responsibility to kind of say the emperor has no clothes. These programs are not what they're saying they are. They can't do what they're claiming to be able to do. So please, there's some red flags around this. If they want all the money up front, it's because they know it's not going to work and you're going to quit. If they don't offer you a payment plan, if they make you sign a contract, if they, all those are all red flags that these are programs. If they are offering 1 meeting a week or a pile of videos, that will not do it. If they don't have a flexible food plan. So Leslie, what was it that said, okay, I'm going to let these 2 other programs fade away because they're not giving me what I now see I need? What was it, Leslie? What was it that you needed?
Well, one program, which was a program that I paid for, had a very, very restrictive food program.
Yes.
That I was hungry. I felt like it was no different than the diet program that I just had gotten off of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't quail my food cravings at all. And they had support, but it was twice a day. One was 5 a.m, and another one was later in the day, and neither one of the times worked for me.
Okay.
When I was able to get support, it's very superficial. It was just very superficial. It's kind of like, they didn't use this word, but it felt like, have you been a good girl kind of thing, you know?
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Oh, that's so
You've been a
painful.
good girl, you've been a bad girl. I mean, that was really the feeling that I got from the support system. I'm like, ooh, you're either doing it or you're good or you're not, and we can't have that. You just have to do the program. I'm like, oh, well, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah, my gosh. Yeah. That's just, and they all do that. They'll say, well, oh, try harder. Just follow the directions.
Yeah.
If I could do that, I could have read a freaking book. Follow the directions.
Yes.
You need so much more. You need that surround support, the 24 hours a day, the lots of great role models, the feeling that it's normal. And I am so glad. So tell us what happened when you came into the ARC.
So when I came into the ARC, I had to ease into it because I had told myself, I'm not really a group person. I'm not really one to share my story. I'm very private. And so it felt a little awkward at first. But luckily, I also had this inner voice, or let's call it my intuition, that said, just try it. Just try it. Just see what happens. You haven't tried this before. What if it works and you didn't even try? Right. So, first, with my advocate, I said to her, I don't want to go to any of the live programming. Just let me watch some videos. And so I started with the videos. I started by watching the videos. And once I started watching the videos and really filling my ears with the message, then I started to get even more curious. Oh, I think I want to try the live programming. Because, the idea of the mirror neurons really, really spoke to me. And I realized I'm not going to invoke mirror neurons watching a video. I'm going to get great messaging with the video, but I'm really not going to activate those.
This is social modeling. This is having a role model. This is how the brain works best. It's by copying somebody else.
Yeah. And so slowly I eased in to coming to the live programming and listening to other people and listening to their struggles, listening to their wins, listening to all the changes that happened for them. And this is really big. This goes back to the other program that I was in where all they wanted to do was talk about the food. Right? My whole life was about food. Right? It had already been about food. And that was something that I thought at first was missing. Well, why aren't they talking about the food? And I want to talk about my food plan. And I want to talk about if I was a good girl today eating the right thing. And then I quickly started to realize that was not what the program was about. Right? And then I had this sigh of relief. Wow, I have a place I can go where I can work on myself. I can work on my emotional processing. I can work on my self-esteem. I can work on creating new values for myself other than just talking about food, talking about nutrition, making food. And it really started to open me up to who am I without this constant, intrusive thoughts about food.
That's it. That's it.
Who am I?
It. We are not, we are what we eat, on a cellular level, But I love what an ARC member said recently. Lauren Kalia said, I'm so glad that I'm not judging myself by how perfect my food is.
Yes.
That's
yes.
it. It's freedom from self-judgment. It's freedom from the judgment of others. It's so painful.
Yeah. And I don't want to pay someone else to judge me, to judge my food.
That's right. I don't want to pay somebody to be mean to me. Firstly, you had a nutrition practice. So you're a successful business person. Tell us what happened. So you came into the ARC, you started to find that, for me, the food is the tail of the dog.
Yeah.
The dog has to be happy and powerful for that tail to be, you got to build a whole lot of fundamental self-regard, etc., and very specific skills to live differently than the rest of the culture. So that worked for you. And then you got into the training because you developed a nutrition practice. Tell us what happened there.
Well, it's interesting. It was actually right away what I started absorbing by being in the community and listening to others and approaching change in a different way, not just looking at the food list or the food program, right? But really looking at people in a whole different way. So I had this client, and she was doing really well with the program that I'd put on for her, right? So I gave her food list. I gave her, it was complicated, by the way. This is before I knew better. I gave her this complicated food plan, an exercise plan. She had to track her food, check in with me twice a day for accountability. And at first she was doing well and felt good. And so I was feeling rewarded, but then it started to backfire, right? And she started experiencing what I experienced, right? Where the weight started to come back on. She was really stressed out, overwhelmed, and she started pulling away from me. So, like starting to, reschedule appointments with me and all of this. And so this was right at the time when I'm in the addiction recovery community. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try a different way. I'm going to try some of these things that I'm learning, right? And so I started approaching her in a different way and looking at her, where is that stress coming from? Where is that overwhelming feeling coming from? And let's take a look at what that's doing and how that's triggering you, right? And how that was triggering her and causing her to revert back to these, self-defeating behaviors.
Right.
And this started to start a conversation between her and I that was very
beautiful,
very deep. And she felt heard, right? So just as this started to happen, I said, you know what? This is how I want to do this. So I joined the FARA training, right? And I'm like, this is it. This was a big one for me. I can help other people at the same time I'm helping myself.
That's it.
That was new for me. That was new for me because if you remember my cycle I was talking about is if I'm not perfect, go run and hide, don't interact with people. Right? Where now it's like, no, I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to have it all together. I don't need to be a certain weight to help people. I can help myself and help my clients and help other people at the same time that I am in recovery myself.
Right. It's through the stories. A lot of the food addiction recovery advocate training, the FARA training, is through stories about what happened to us. And when you tell somebody it's a story about what is happening to you, they immediately relax. Oh, she has this too. And oh, she figured out how to fix it. Okay, great. Well, I'm working with the right person because she's been through it. She'll understand what I'm going through. You can have that connection and then the healing happens.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, whereas before, I would never have allowed myself to be vulnerable to tell a client my struggles and my story.
Yeah.
That was something I kept private. And now now I'm proud of
You're
my
using
growth.
it. You're
Yeah.
using it.
Yeah.
And I
And
know you've told
and I
me.
understand. I understand where they're coming from. And I let them
Well,
know that I really do understand.
it's so cool. You've told me that you were ready to quit being a nutritionist. You'd give somebody a food plan, they wouldn't be able to follow it. They'd come back, they would quote unquote fail, and you were burning out and you just didn't want to do that anymore. But now with your forest skills, they're blossoming. Your outside clients are blossoming.
Yeah, they really are. And you know
Yeah.
what? It makes it so much more fun.
It's fun.
Because I'm not just using that I don't know, that intellectual part of me, which I feel
Mhm.
that I was using before, where it's just like, well, just do this. Here's the list, follow the directions.
Doesn't work.
It's so much more. It's so much more
Yeah.
now.
Because they're happier too. I know you mentioned to me once you're giving them all the time in the world. They're so grateful. There's no pressure. There's no shame. There's no stress. This is something that we're going to build together from the ground up. And oh,
Yeah.
Leslie, I'm so grateful that you are in my life. You inspire me. You get it so deeply. Whatever you get, you translate into helping other people. I'm just super, super grateful for you. And I'm so sorry for what you've been through. 12 years old, already going to just through the ringer.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that you've shared that with other people. And I know there are a lot of teenage girls who are caught up in the image, just the image nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a great role model for them.
Oh,
All
thank you so
right.
much.
Any parting words? Any thoughts you would like to share? This has been so wonderful.
I would say my parting words were, recently I've been speaking with a lot of other nutrition professionals and health
Thank
and
you.
wellness coaches.
Yeah.
And I found out, you know what? I'm not the only one that's hiding.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And one of the things that I've realized is kind of sad is that there are so many amazing people out there who they want to be nutritionists or health and wellness coaches, but they're afraid that they're not at the perfect weight or they don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And they think that they have to do that before they can help other people. So
Yeah.
so I would say something that I feel is really important is if you want to help people, you don't have to already have it figured out. You don't have to be perfect. I just feel like there's so many wonderful people out there that want to help others that
Yes.
aren't. They're just not sharing their talents, and they're not sharing that care that they have for others because they're still carrying that shame that they're
The
not good
cultural
enough,
shame.
that they're not thin enough, that they
Yep.
don't know enough. And so that would really be my message is you can help people without being that perfect vision that you might have of yourself. I just feel
True.
that if you're just one step ahead, just one little step ahead of someone else, you have value to offer them, a hand to reach out to them and say, let me pull you out of that. Let me pull you out of that dark hole. And,
The thing
let's
about this is
do
that
this together.
if I think all what my experience with professionals is that they didn't get the cravings recovery training, they didn't get the addiction recoveries training, and that is why they are struggling.
Yeah.
That is why they're still in the yo-yo cycle. So I would say two things. One, if you're a professional and you're tired of the burnout, you hand over the advice and it can't be followed. Please come and talk to us about the food addiction recovery advocate training. And like Leslie, it's just water on the desert with her practice. She got all these skills to engage on a comprehensive level. It's not just about the food, but it's also about cravings and
Mhm.
trigger control and thought control and emotional control and relationship management. And now she has the ability to help in all of those areas, all of which make that's all the foundation for control. And the other thing I would say is if you are thinking about a $20,000 2-year coaching program or a $26,000 master's in nutrition, please, 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 please come and take our 6-month phase 1 food addiction recovery advocate training. And what we have found is that skill set helps another person.
Yeah.
Being able to write a food plan is about 5%. The other 90% is all the things that we've been talking about. And you may find that at the end of a 6-month intensive, or not intensive, it's pretty relaxed, it's fun, food addiction recovery advocate training, that you have all the skills that you need to help another person out of pretty serious health concerns, not just weight loss, but all the other diet-related mental, physical, emotional, behavioral syndromes that come out of the way that processed foods are literally poisoning us. Leslie, thank you. This has been an amazing time together. I'm so grateful to you. Guys, please, if you have questions for Leslie, if you're thinking about a nutrition degree or a coaching degree, do connect with us, and Leslie will talk to you about the difference between getting a degree that helps and a degree that's just too marginal. It's too much on the side to really be effective. All right. Thank you. I will see you next time on Conversations with Dr. Joan Ifland. Thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate your interest. Tell the next person. You can walk the next person out of this processed food nightmare with what you learned today. See you next time.